in compliance with the Nebraska statutes of the Open Meetings Act. For reference, the Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall of the boardroom. Start off with roll call.
Supervisor Scott Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Angie Brewmeister. Burmeister here. Commissioner Roger Garcia.
Here.
Mayor Rusty Height.
Here.
Mayor Doug Kindig. Councilmember Don Rowe.
Here.
Mayor Gene Stothert. Supervisor Carol Benton.
Here.
And Mayor Matt Walsh.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Start with B, approval of the agenda. This is an action item. May I have a motion?
Motion Height. Second. Walsh.
Roll call.
Bell.
Aye.
Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Benton.
Yes. Board minutes of the January 25th, 2024 meeting. Action item. May I have a motion?
Second, Burmeister.
Roll call.
Bell.
Aye.
Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Benton.
Yes. D, the agency reports and presentations. This is for information. Mike, you want to do the executive director's report?
Yeah, happy to. So starting off, I'd just like to welcome Commissioner Roger Garcia. So he's our new Douglas County representative here. So he's filling in the spot that Commissioner Rogers had held, and Commissioner Rogers is going to remain our alternate here on the board. But welcome to Commissioner Rogers, now also the Douglas County Board Chair. So very, very glad to have you. First slide here, Christina, if you want to advance it. Carol and I and Mayor Walsh and Jacqueline Morrison from the city of Omaha, in addition to Mayor Walsh's chief of staff, attended the National Conference of Regions in Washington, D.C. So for the first time really ever, but it was at the same time as NACO for the county officials as well. And so it was a real opportunity to kind of overlap. And I know there was a little bit of opportunity to collaborate between those two conferences in a way that we haven't had to in the past. But this is our annual policy conference for regional councils like MAPA. We had our legislative visits on the Wednesday, met with a number of legislators, both from the Congress and from the Senate, and talked about kind of broadly our priorities, things relating to the infrastructure bill and transportation spending, to EDA and reauthorization of those programs. We're an economic development district, and so that feeds into the work we do. And then more broadly, just some of the various tracks of community funding, like community development block grants, the role that those play in supporting projects both in communities large and small. And so overall, I think productive conversations. You know, we met with staffers for Fisher, Feenstra, and Grassley, and actually met with the congressmen Bacon and Flood. And so good opportunities to connect with them and let them know what's going on in the MAPA region. Next, Christina. Some news coverage. So MAPA, we released our traffic reports. I'm not going to go too in depth in these because Owen will be up here talking about those in a moment, but a lot of news coverage of kind of our biennial traffic reports. These are kind of technical studies we do looking at traffic counts around the region, understanding trends, and particularly with this report, looking at kind of where we bounced back from COVID in terms of some of that economic activity and traffic throughout the region. So I'll let Owen talk more about that, but just some news coverage both in the Omaha World Herald, as well as on KIOS radio. Next. One project that we talked a bit about is the US 34 Platte River Bridge. So this is the bridge along the US 34 75 corridor between Sarpy and Cass County, and the trail that's under construction by the Papio NRD. Just rewinding time a little bit, this is the result of an MOU between MAPA and the Nebraska Department of Transportation to essentially swap some funding to make sure that this connection happened. When this roadway was designated as a freeway, when they're making the improvements along Highway 75, bicyclists and pedestrians were no longer allowed to use it. And so it basically created a 16-mile gap for bicyclists and pedestrians between Sarpy and Cass County. We were able to get the state to invest in girders to allow for a trail connection bridge to be built. And so the NRD has an MOU with MAPA and several other local organizations to build this bridge. It's under construction. If you drive there now, there's a lane closure as they're actually building the trail connection here now. So really exciting to see that in action and being really, I think, a really key barrier breaking project between those two communities and really the trail networks on both the north and south side. MAPA has been brought in to help facilitate some conversations between multi-jurisdictional partners around really the Missouri River and really kind of continuing ice jam concerns. And so back in 2022, there was an ice jam on the Missouri River that's been pretty well documented and impacted water levels and possibility of power production and other things around the region. And so there's been an after action report developed by a consultant, and MAPA has really been facilitating, and Julie and Grant have been leading those conversations of just talking through with emergency managers, with OPPD, with city officials, and really kind of talking about, how do we coordinate with the Corps of Engineers? How do we make sure that we don't run into some of the unexpected issues that we've seen, and what kind of planning and policy needs to be put in place to support that? So kind of a good example of how MAPA is creating a collaborative table for those things to happen. And next, Christina. Talked about the Economic Recovery Corps program in the past. This is a new initiative through EDA. MAPA helped support an application for the North 24th Business Improvement District, so actually the corridor right outside our door here from Cuming up to Ames. The BID has really been a partner on a number of federally funded projects with the city of Omaha, a number of earmark projects here to do a streetscape project kind of in the core of the North 24th Street District. And as part of that, they've really had to increase their capacity and really be a part of a lot of this. And so we identified this program as an opportunity for them to actually get an AmeriCorps type fellow to support that work. And this is different than other AmeriCorps programs. It's not an entry-level position, someone who's straight out of college. It's actually a mid-level career person. And so that fellow has been matched with them coming from Tampa area, where she has worked on a number of very similar kind of economic development driven corridor projects, really going to be a tremendous asset to the 24th Street Business Improvement District. And Jacqueline and I both helped facilitate that and serve on the interviews, and really an exciting project that we're happy to see EDA resources being directed to the region to support that. Next slide, a couple of things here from the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. We had an update at our statewide association meeting last month, and just wanted to talk through a couple of things that you may have heard about, you may not have heard about, but will definitely be coming. NDED is leading what they're calling the Regional Development Initiative. This is going to be organized around the community college areas in the state of Nebraska, and focused kind of broadly on workforce and really, I would say, kind of game-changing investments that can be made to spur economic activity around agriculture, business development, workforce, and talent investment. It's kind of interesting, we're presenting to the regional councils about this and economic development districts about this, and it's going through the community colleges. But I think it's going to be a unique opportunity to talk about some catalytic projects. And so really, this is just a note for our Nebraska stakeholders that this is on the way. We'll pass on the information when we have more, but it was kind of our first blush on what was happening with NDED on that front. And then the second piece here is a housing resiliency study that's getting ramped up. It's focused on Douglas and Sarpy counties around flood recovery from the 2019 floods. And as we've talked through with NDED staff on a lot of what they're focusing on, ties very closely to some of the work that we've done in our regional development report, some of the support that we're doing with our zoning atlas and other things to really think about how do we make the region more resilient to these types of flooding events in the past, what's the state's role, what are local roles. And so more to come on that. It's really just getting kicked off here in the new year, but things that I think will be really important to policymakers around the region at the local level as they ramp up. And then finally, just an invitation to everybody here on the board to our Council of Officials meeting on March 13th. We'll be at the venue at the Highlander, so just up here on North 30th Street. We'll have legislative updates from Nebraska and Iowa, kind of mid-session. It kind of depends how you measure it, but mid-session in both states. And really just kind of getting an understanding for our stakeholders, what's coming, what is still at play, and an opportunity to hear from MAPA's lobbyists, which we have for Nebraska, and then our state association lobbyist in Iowa. We'll be talking just kind of broadly about some of those things, but a good opportunity to ask questions from kind of that broader local government perspective as well. And so with that, that's the end of my presentation on that. Unless there are any questions.
Owen, would you like to?
Oh, and then I have the annual member survey.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Any questions on my executive director report before I dive into this? If not, I talked last month broadly about our member survey. This is something that we've been kicking off around the time of our annual meeting back in October. And it's been something where we've tried to make it slightly more actionable for staff over the years to be kind of a good touch point with communities and give us kind of a follow-up framework for the early part of this year as we're developing our work program. So we've got the chart up here about respondents from counties. I think it was 31 total responses for across the region. And you can see the breakdown there between the states. If you go to the next slide, Christina, the top line category that we have here, and it's a little hard, I guess it's not hard, we have screens in front of us now. You can see kind of on the general community assistance requests, many of these are things that we had just checking boxes. The ones that have a single response are things that people typed in themselves. But you can see here, you know, when we're talking to them about what are ways that or needs that you have at the local level, where can MAPA help fit in? Funding for local projects continues to be a major priority, parks and trails, zoning updates or comprehensive plan updates, and then placemaking, public engagement, and water and sewer infrastructure, kind of rounding out that top 6 of categories. Really, I think affirming what we see sort of year to year, but again, these are the priorities that we set year to year in our work program. We want to make sure that's aligned. And then Christina, if you go to the next piece here, we have 2 broader, more specific categories about housing and development and transportation. And we sort of ask, you know, for your community, you know, how important are these topics for you going into the next year? And you see that both on the housing and development side of things and transportation side of things, a lot of interest. And then going into the specific priorities, Christine, if you go to the next slide on housing and development. It's all right. Housing and development, you see kind of affordable housing, affordability, housing choices, increases in housing stock, rehabilitation of housing, and new and commercial and industrial development are the top 5 there for our community partners, with other topics in there as well as vacancy and brownfields. This, again, in recent years, we've done a big tick up on technical assistance and summits and really trying to understand how we can help support those projects, both from private entities and public entities around the region. In addition to loss of housing, and in a lot of our communities, we're seeing, you know, housing not be replaced after it's demolished. And so how do we help support some of that things? This is an area where a lot of interest, but I would just say housing choices and housing affordability continues to grow year over year as main concerns of our policy makers at the local level. And on transportation side of things, trails and sidewalk connectivity are the top 2 categories there. Infrastructure improvements around economic development, bicycle infrastructure for on-street, and then transit service being those top 5 categories that we heard from our members, and then just a litany of more specific things that fall within that as well. This has been pretty consistent year over year, I would say, in terms of our priorities. But again, as we look at our work program for our transportation activities, these are key priorities that we'll make sure that we're focusing staff effort on at the regional level. And so that is it for the member surveys. Again, this is something where we use this to really be a check on our work program. We'll be bringing that draft work program to you next month, both at the Council of Officials meeting, or the work program priorities, I should say, at the Council of Officials meeting and at the Board of Directors meeting next month. And so it's a good opportunity to use this survey feedback and as a test for some of that.
One quick comment is, it would be nice to see if the city of Omaha did any kind of feedback survey on usage of bike lanes, particularly the one on Harney Street, still downtown. Because, you know, my office faces Harney Street at corner of 19th and Harney, and I rarely see that.
You don't see me pedaling to the Civic Center?
They built it specifically for you, and
They did. They did. I didn't get naming rights though.
Would be interesting to know they're gonna put a trolley up there too, so you know the trolley and a bike lane. And I think we'll have to learn to drive on 2 wheels and go down that street to fit through there. So I'd say that kind of sarcastically, but really seriously, it would be nice to see, not just for that area, but just bike lanes in general in a city like ours, which is more of a commuter, a car city. And I know we're trying to get someone away from that, but it would be interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting you brought that up because we helped support at the end of the pilot period. We supported the final report on the bike lane pilot, the Harney Street Bikeway project, and we used some data from Strava, which is an app on your phone that people use to track their trips for recreation, and we're able to show really how biking patterns within that kind of urban core area were really consolidated at Harney Street when that infrastructure investment went in. And so there's some great data that the city of Omaha has published on there. Happy to provide that to you. But I think moreover, there's been research at UNL that we've been trying to support and expand around bike lanes and kind of before and after studies of both safety and usage. And I would say it's pretty young here in Nebraska, but there are some things that we've seen here within Nebraska looking at that. But that main report, we'll happy to send that to you because that's, I think, a good piece.
Who knows, maybe you'll name me on it.
If only.
Michael, thank you. Those are reports. Owen, let's have a traffic report.
Sure. Hello, my name is Owen Stuckey and I'm MAPA GIS coordinator. For the past 6 months, MAPA has been working on its biannual traffic report update, which is our analysis of traffic patterns, intersection changes, and updates in freight, transit, bike share, and bike and ped patterns as well. The data that we analyzed includes numbers from 2020 to 2022, which obviously won't show large volume changes from the pandemic period, but we also tried to place those in context to before the pandemic so that we can see what a more straight across analysis. The count data from Nebraska came from 4 jurisdictions, including Omaha, Sarpy, Douglas, and the Nebraska Department of Transportation. We also got numbers from the Iowa Department of Transportation. However, I will touch on those in the next slide, where we were actually unable to get counts. These count numbers drastically increase in response to the pandemic. So on the Iowa side, traffic data collection happens every 4 years. We were set up to have traffic data collected for the Iowa side in 2020. We did actually get data collected. However, it was a little bit wonky for the reasons we all know. And so they decided that impact of the pandemic was a little too bad to use those numbers as part of our analysis. So the top traffic interchanges analysis is a look at which interchanges see the highest amount of traffic, counts across an entire year. You can see that in this year's report, the busiest interchange is the I-680 and I-80 interchange with 231,000 vehicles per day, followed by I-480 and I-80 on 70, and then 72nd I-80 in that order. 84th and I-80 moved up 3 spots. It was at the 7th busiest in 2020, and 2022 is now the 4th busiest. The top traffic intersections analysis showed little change from the last report to this one, with 90th and West Dodge continuing to be the busiest intersection, and 120th and L and 72nd and Dodge close in second and third respectively. 90th and Dodge saw 91,000 vehicles per day, which is an increase of 15,000 vehicles from the last report. 132nd West Center has made it into the top 10 of intersections. It had 51,000 vehicles in 2020 and is now at 58,000. Analyzing the change in volume across the region using traffic analysis districts, we can start to see where concentrations of growth or shrink are occurring. In the period analyzed, we saw the greatest increases occurred in rural areas of Sarpy County and Douglas County where development was happening. Traffic in the region overall grew by 13%, spurred mainly by growth in southwestern Sarpy and the urban core and outer Douglas County border, which is separated by the I-680. Data indicates that traffic increased by 15% across Sarpy County, 13% in Douglas County, and 13% in Potawatomi and Mills. The Omaha urban core saw an increase of 10% alone, and it is likely that a return to office after the pandemic is possible. So when you start to contextualize the pandemic as part of these traffic analysis numbers, you can see that the increase was not as drastic as thought. The impact can be seen looking at the 4 different years. From 2018 to 2022, the region's average BMT change only 5.8% compared to the 13% growth seen from 2020 to 2022. The highest concentration of growth is in rural Douglas County, with less of an impact from the I-680 urban core border. Southwestern Sarpy is still seeing a higher amount than other traffic analysis districts. Comparison of 2018 to 2022 also shows much lower BMT for the urban core and all of Potawatomi and Mills County. You can see there are decreases pretty much entirely on that side. Similarly, when comparing numbers from 2021 to 2022, regional BMT growth is even less, at only 3%. With the area of outer Douglas and the urban forest, I-680 still standing out. Traffic analysis districts show flat or little growth from the previous year, while the urban core, South Omaha, and now northeastern Sarpy County see reductions. So this table shows us how those numbers are broken out by federal functional class of the roadway that are being taken. When you compare how BMT was spread across these different types, you can see that the pandemic's impacts are noted from 2019 to 2021. But that rebound has leveled off as we move to a number that seems like a more steady growth. And this graph helps to understand those numbers visually by geography, with clear increases being seen by all classes in 2021 after the pandemic, but Sarpy and Outer Douglas still seeing the most sustained growth in 2022, likely because of the housing developments there. Finally, I want to bring attention to our online traffic data portal. This allows any user with the address, the URL address, to explore the data to find a resolution, and it's available on the report alone. There are graphs that detail individual growth segments with the AADT, the annual average daily traffic, as well as the last time that segment is counted. And then there are graphs within individual intersections and interchanges that can show you the change over time in the last 5 years. It's ranked within the TMA and all of the AADT stats as well for the last time that was collected. We've posted all of our reports live on our website, and you can see that each one of them here. These are clickable links if you have access to this presentation, so you can go to that as well as the data portal. And if you go to the next slide, we've also produced a large size wall map that engineers or any other traffic engineers are interested in kind of get into the finer details of individual segments and what it looks like. And that's the traffic report update. If there are any questions.
Very interesting.
Thank you
That's
very much.
amazing how traffic is increasing that fast.
But
Wow.
bouncing back from the pandemic.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Very good. Thank you, Owen. Since these are reports, I don't need a motion, but we will do a staff recognition.
Yes, so we've been on a run here at
Yes, we
MAPA of
have.
recognizing kind of major milestones. And today we get to recognize Jim Borner, who's on our transportation team, recently promoted to a transportation planner 3 here with us at MAPA, but really 5 years of service to MAPA and bringing really his training as an engineer to MAPA has really allowed us to go deep in terms of data analysis, traffic analysis, safety analysis, and really allowing us to grow into new areas and adding, I think, a level of rigor to our work that has been really beneficial to us internally and also to our stakeholders. And so tremendously grateful for Jim's time here with MAPA. 5 years has been great to us, and he's heading up our safety initiatives here as well with Safe Streets for All. So if you haven't been seeing him, you'll be seeing him a lot more as we get into that grant as well. And so thanks to
Wonderful.
Jim. Excited to recognize you here today. And you get to make any comments that you'd like as well.
Yeah, thank you, for that. I guess thinking back to the application that I applied for, it's like what MAPA was, and that was a question of my job. But I was given a laundry list of things, to work on. I've had the chance to do all those, and more so not a boring day here. That's quite exciting.
And so we'll grab a photo with you after the meeting today, but thank you, Jim, very much.
Great. Congratulations, Jim. All right, moving on. Any public comments that anybody wants to? Nothing? Okay. On F, we'll take the whole consent agenda as one motion.
So moved, Burmeister.
May I have a second? Let's go, Elizabeth. And roll call.
Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia. Rowe.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Benton.
Yes. For old business, Mike, you want to take away statewide urban design?
Sure. So Iowa has a board called SUDIS, or the Statewide Urban Design and Specifications Board. Each TMA, like MAPA, kind of a large metropolitan region, gets to assign one board member to this statewide board. And traditionally, that's been the traffic engineer from the city of Council Bluffs, because you need to be an engineer to actually serve on this board. It's a board that's brought together by the state of Iowa, by Iowa State University, and by Iowa DOT to lay out urban design standards, really kind of making our roadways not just highways, but fit into an urban context, and providing really, I think, a little bit of consistency across the state for how they approach those things. And so Matt Cox has been our representative until the end of last year. We're asking to renominate him on behalf of the MAPA board, or the MAPA region here today. This comes with a favorable recommendation from our Transportation Technical Advisory Committee as well.
Okay. Okay.
Belt.
Aye.
Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia. Pike.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Benton.
Yes. Go on to two, the resolution, the Iowa Critical Urban Freight. Jim?
Good afternoon. Coming to you again, as we've had, presentations, I guess, both in Iowa and Nebraska side over the past 2 years. The National Highway Freight Network is an opportunity for U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Highway to identify those corridors which are priorities for freight. Some of those are set nationally, the critical urban freight corridors, in particular, the state is required to work with the Metropolitan Planning Organization and prioritizing those in Iowa. Those are done typically in conjunction with the state freight plan updates, which Iowa did early on during the bipartisan infrastructure law implementation. And one of the things that law gave is basically double the amount of mileage that could be used. And so really we're coming back to you to add in 2 additional corridors, which didn't fit within that mileage for last year. So go to the next slide, please. Both of these focus on priorities set by the Federal Highway in that we close gaps, and in particular, we close gaps that exist at states. So in the upper left, Abbott Drive is a new addition, and that just provides access from an already designated critical corridor in Nebraska. And the second one, River Road down there in the lower right, had previously been established. It fell off the priority list during the state freight plan update, but now that there's additional mileage, it puts that back in. And that River Road provides access from I-29 to Warren Distribution and some other distribution facilities in Council Bluffs. Going to the final slide, really kind of the summary that we provide to the state. We work with their state freight planners. They'll provide this information to the Federal Highway Administration and look for updates again to those to the total mileage and what's represented in our region. This comes with a favorable recommendation from TTAC. Our recommendation would be board approval for these urban freight corridors to be added to the inventory.
Okay. Any other questions for Jim?
Can you tell me what TTAC is?
Transportation Technical Advisory Committee. So it's a subcommittee of the board.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mike.
Mike? Roll call?
Belt. Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia. Pike.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Benton.
Yes. Thank you, Jim. Moving on to new business. Mike, how about a learning site visit?
Sure. So MAPA has had learning site visits as a leadership exchange that we've been using as a tool for a number of years now, and taking people kind of across the country to various metro areas to learn about what other communities are doing, what they made them successful, and what we might be able to emulate here. Our next proposal is to do this in Charlotte, North Carolina here in April, here at the end of April. And the approval here today is for 22 travelers to do that. The cost here is really authorizing MAPA to spend on these costs here that you have in the memo that was in the board packet. Most of this, apart from the staff piece, which is a separate line item in our budget, is recouped by people contributing from their own employers or their own personal pockets. So a big part of this is actually leveraging that investment and really MAPA playing the role of coordinating this, kind of developing the agenda, connecting with regional stakeholders out there. But it's really exciting to take folks to Charlotte. I know Council Bluffs is sending a delegation out there to the Streetcar Summit earlier in April. A lot of the good things to celebrate out there. But ultimately, we're excited to just kind of highlight what's going on in Charlotte around transportation and economic development, in addition to some of the things about adaptive reuse and other speculative development that's going on there that we see a lot of parallels to here in our region as well. So with your approval today, our team would start coordinating with many of those travelers, identifying all of those folks. We're not anticipating it'll be the full 22, but we want to make sure we have latitude to bring as many people as we can on this engagement. And I know Councilman Rowe has actually attended Indianapolis, I believe. If you
Right, I was gonna mention that was early in my career as a city council member, and it was highly beneficial to go with Christina and Laura. That whole team really was helpful to get information on what it's like in we went to Indianapolis and then I went with Kansas City group down to KC. And I'm gonna move for approval.
And I have a second? May I have a second?
Second, Ike.
Mike? Roll call?
Bell.
Aye.
Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia. Pike.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Pittman.
Yes. Moving on down for new contracts, Oracle America, Matt. Hi, Matt.
For those of you who are new, I'm Matt Ace, I'm Director of Finance. So we're finally bringing our contract for NetSuite for Government, our new ERP and financial system that we've been searching for just about a year. And the board approved, I think in December, to award to NetSuite or Oracle America. We have a contract ready now. It is pending legal review, so I would ask any motion to consider that as a caveat pending legal review. If anything with material or a dollar amount needed to change or some scope needed to change, we have to bring it back to the board, subject to any administrative changes or anything like that. We'll just go ahead and execute after we clear those with legal. If you'll note, there's two contracts. Well, there's technically three. There's essentially an administrative contract just agreeing to their general terms of doing business with the organization, and then but that doesn't have any money. It's just more of a terms agreement. We didn't include that here as a line item, but the implementation agreement is one time, so that will be the NetSuite folks coming out essentially and just mapping out our system and building it around our current structure. So that will last about anywhere from 4 to 12 months. We don't know for certain, but that's a hard price there of $245,646, which I imagine will make contract progress payments to them as they go along. And then we have a 60-month subscription. So the 5-year that locks us in at $50,749.20 per year, with the price fixed that for that time, and that's $253,706 for the entire 60 months. And so we would ask for a motion to approve both of these contracts pending legal review. Obviously, I'm here to answer any questions if you have about the process. Also, we have on for virtual call, we have our consultant Barry Dunn, who helped us get to this to this point with selecting NetSuite. And if you have any questions, he's ready to answer them as well. I do need to remind you also, so we're funding, the board agreed to fund the implementation costs with our cash reserves. So, because it's a one-time cost, and we budgeted $200,000 for that. So this is a little bit over that, and we would adjust that at the end of the year. We always do an end of the year adjustment for our investment plan as well as our annual budget. So we'd adjust that line item to cover this fixed amount.
So Matt, you said the implementation is 245,000, but then when you were speaking, it's 253.
Right. The implementation is a one-time cost of 245. Will be
One time. Okay.
Probably some of it will come out of our out of FY24, and then it'll spill over into FY25 as that implementation process completes. But the 253,706 is the total of our 60-month subscription. So that's the actual software licensing that we'll have and access to the accounting systems.
Got it. All right.
Total of $500,000.
What's that?
Total of $500,000 altogether, right? For the 60 months.
Yes.
Yeah, over 60 months, we will have spent about $500,000 on that.
Okay. And that is an action item, so I do need a motion for that. Or Matt? Any second?
That's subject to legal's
Yeah.
approval.
Okay. Roll call?
Bell. Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Benson.
Yes. Thank you, Matt. Jim, you want to explain to us about safe streets and roads?
So, this is the first of two, contract agreements. If you'll recall, when we came to the board initially and then laying out our priorities for the Safe Streets and Road Study, we realized that being by state and really coming up with a plan that allows for data-driven decision-making. We've chosen two consultants to work on the specialties. The first one, here, for the Public Outreach and Comprehensive Safety Action Plan is a team that will be held up, led by WSD, who led the planning for the Vision Zero plan for the city of Omaha and supported by other consultants to do public outreach and to develop a comprehensive safety action plan. And this first contract will actually kick off in March. We'll look to take a little bit over a year and finalize by June of next year. That involves developing a comprehensive safety action plan to be brought for approval by this board, as well as all member jurisdictions adopting that safety action plan, and also provides the ability to support on a limited basis and grant development for projects that would come out of that plan. The second, again, the data support team provides a lot of upfront work and then some continuity for staff. Again, with the goal of having this comprehensive safety action plans, it will be a living document, it'll be something that we update year over year. A lot of what the data support plan does is it gives us tools in-house to provide that update, so they'll be working with us, bringing that data into our ArcGIS online system, and then providing us with the tools to update that year over year, both to report as required on progress to date, as well as to support future projects. Both of these are being paid for by our Safe Streets and Roads for All planning action grant, which we were awarded from the FY22 awarding period. We're very excited to finally get to the point where we're bringing on both of these teams. They're ready to go, and a lot of this will be supported by MAPA staff as well, and some local nonprofit and advocacy support groups in doing that public outreach areas where we know we need to do it most. Happy to take any questions.
So Jim, is this agreement then will be signed every time you have a project with?
It will not. So the ultimate deliverable from this project will be that comprehensive safety action plan and the supporting data that comes from that data support. What this will do is it gives us the opportunity to apply for future funding. For example,
Oh, okay.
the FY24 version of the Safe Streets and Roads for All funding application is actually open right now. Yesterday, I believe, will be open through May. What this would allow us to do is to apply for funds for projects, policy-related activities. Once the study is complete, which is why we look to finish by June of 2025 to be. The plan will be completed earlier than that to be eligible for that funding, but there are a lot of funding sources otherwise, federal or state, that really we want to identify projects that fit well into a bin, kind of those low cost, that regionally spread across the region, that we can look to hopefully achieve some pretty quick turnaround projects. New construction.
Okay, good enough. Any questions? If not, can I have a motion
Motion, Hike.
and a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Second.
Rowe.
Which one's the runner?
Bell. Burmeister.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes. Item I, any discussion on anything? I want to thank MAPA for having me have the experience of going out to DC on NARC. It was, like Michael says, we learn a lot, and we get to talk to the legislators and tell them how important it is to keep the money coming, and We had some excellent speakers and I got the honor of being one of those speakers of how did your county recover from disaster? And it just so happened that I got to sit by a couple FEMA people and they got an earful. So I hope maybe they take some things back to the Hill. But it was very interesting and I want to thank it. It's truly an honor, that's for sure. Anything else that anybody wants to say? Any additional business we need to discuss, talk about? All righty, meeting adjourned.
You need a motion for that.
Oh, a motion?
There you go. There you go.
Second.
Okay. There we go. Got it.